Have you ever heard somebody share their story, maybe about trauma, or it could even just be being very open about what they're struggling with or how they're feeling, and thought to yourself, wow, I wish I could do that. I'm just not strong enough. I wish I was courageous enough to speak up about that. If so, you're not alone, and today's video is a message for you. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm Peggy Oliveira. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure to subscribe and click the little bell for notifications. So I'm doing this video because this is something that comes up a lot. And it can come up in different ways. And with social media, particularly TikTok, I think it's coming up more and more. I'm hearing people share this more and more with me, where there's a part of them that wants to be able to speak up and share publicly, but they're afraid. They're not ready. They have more healing to do, whatever it is. But in their mind, the reason they're not sharing is because they believe that they're not strong enough. They're not courageous enough. And that is simply, absolutely not true. Yes, it takes courage to speak out publicly about things that are not well received, about your own personal experiences, anything that feels vulnerable. It takes courage to do that. There's no doubt about that. But that is not the only expression of courage that exists. Every day, there is something in your life that you are likely expressing your courage in. It doesn't have to be speaking your story publicly. And one of the reasons I think I hear this from people a lot is because most people that I interact with find me on YouTube. And so they've watched a lot of my videos where I've shared a lot of things. And they feel like they want to be able to help other people too, which is great. And sharing our stories is helpful to other people. But it doesn't have to be in a public way. And I have talked about this in different ways before. Sharing our stories publicly, sharing and being vulnerable publicly can be powerful. But the conversations that we have with people just one-on-one, those are often far more meaningful. Because when you're having a conversation one-on-one with somebody, you're building connection. Even if you don't end up becoming really close, you're still building connection in those moments. And when you share honestly and openly, again, it could just be something that you're struggling with or how you feel about something. Maybe it is your trauma story or whatever story. But you're building connection in that moment. And because that connection is building, the impact that you have in being open and honest is more powerful to that person hearing. When you see random comments from people you don't know and they say, "Me too," that's powerful, right? You know that you're not alone, especially if there are a lot of people that say, "Me too." You know that there are a lot of people in the same position as you, same feelings as you, whatever. You know that you're not alone, and that's beneficial. But if you have a conversation one-on-one with somebody and you share something and they say, "Me too," or the other way around, in that moment, you're likely going to expand on that conversation. You're going to feel the energy with that person, even if it's a phone call or a Zoom call, or it doesn't have to be in person necessarily. But when it's one-on-one, there's more energy passed back and forth. When it's to multiple people, the energy is dispersed. So I want you to understand that using your voice, sharing something with somebody on an individual basis, really is just as powerful as sharing it to the masses. Yeah, maybe not as many people hear it, but that isn't imperative in you being able to make a difference. One of the ways that this has come up recently is in the US with Roe v. Wade likely being overturned by the Supreme Court. People have shared with me that how angry and frustrated and scared they are about it, that they really wish that they could use their voice too, that they could speak out, that they could share on social media or go to a march or something like that and acknowledge that they had an abortion, acknowledge that they were assaulted and became pregnant, acknowledge that whatever, just how they feel about it, what their values are. Maybe the people around them have very different values, but they're afraid. And naturally so. There's a reason that most people don't speak up about things like that. And it's not about being a coward. Some people are, of course, but that's not really what it's about, especially when it comes to stuff like this and sharing your personal history. There's a lot that goes into that. And again, yes, it takes courage to be able to do that, but the more you've been doing it, the less courage it actually takes. Kind of like the video that I did, I don't know, a few weeks ago, I think, where I talked about what I was sharing in my journal, feeling far more vulnerable than a lot of my trauma history that I've shared with you. And that's because by the time I shared my trauma history with you, I had done so much healing. And this is an important part too. I had been in private practice but when I did my first YouTube video, I had already been in private practice for 6 years and a therapist for even longer. So by that time, I had shared my abuse history, some of it, not details, but I had shared that I had been abused. I shared with some people like the nature of the relationship with the abuser, how many abusers, like I had shared a lot of different pieces with different clients depending on what they asked. So one-on-one, right? Somebody asked a question, I shared, they felt like they were not alone. Maybe they felt hopeful about what could be possible for them. That was one-on-one for more than 6 years. It's because of that sharing one-on-one that when I decided to create YouTube videos, I had done the healing, I had shared privately. So sharing on a YouTube channel that I thought very few people would actually see didn't feel that big. But I started small. I started one-on-one. Sharing in public ways can be beneficial for the person sharing, and it can certainly be beneficial for other people. But please do not get caught up in the idea that the only way you can make a difference is by sharing publicly, because it is absolutely not. It isn't. And I have had conversations with a lot of people over the years that have shared something publicly on YouTube, on social media, got in front of a group of people. Like I'm just trying to think of some of the different scenarios. I don't think I've heard from anybody specifically about TikTok, but definitely social media. I've heard from people who have, during different kinds of societal things going on, kind of spoken up. And one person in particular kind of got a lot of attention. And what often can happen depending on how much healing you've done, is that it can create a lot of difficulty. It can create a lot of shame, because if you haven't yet done all the healing you need to do, there's still likely shame swirling around in here. And you know how easily shame can be triggered. And it doesn't have to be that anything bad happens, but vulnerability is a natural way for shame to be kind of right there under the surface. So a lot of those people have ended up really, really struggling afterward. Even if nothing bad necessarily happened, it just can be incredibly vulnerable. So if you have found yourself feeling bad about who you are, thinking that you're not strong, thinking that you're not courageous, thinking that you'll never be able to do something that you want to do. Remember this. Remember what I've said in this video, and remember that there are so many ways that strength and courage show up in our lives. Sometimes getting out of bed is a tremendous amount of strength. Some days asking for your order to be corrected after going through a drive-through takes a tremendous amount of courage. And I know there are going to be some of you who know exactly what I'm talking about, right? And in fact, some days you might do it and other days you might not, because it just feels like too much. And courage is not better or worse. People who share publicly, that courage isn't better than the courage of telling somebody that they got your order wrong. Courage doesn't really have a hierarchy. It just is. And there are so many ways that you are courageous. So many ways in every single day that your strength is evident, even if not for you. It is there, without a doubt. So when you think about sharing that you wish you could share publicly, just think of it as maybe one day I'll share. Maybe one day I'll feel like I am ready to do that. And maybe you will. And if you don't, that is perfectly okay. It does not take away in any way at all the courage and strength that you have, that you've always had. That will not be taken from you. So I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What did you notice coming up for you? Were you able to relate to any of it? Have you sometimes wished that you could share something? Again, even just being honest about how you're feeling about something, and then feel like there's something wrong with you, that you're not enough of something. Is there something that maybe you have done that you could look at as being evidence of being strong or courageous? Yes, there are, without any doubt. There are many things that you could point to. You may not be able to see them. You may not register that that was strength or courage. But if you have started your healing journey, strength and courage. If you have commented on one of my videos, courage, strength too, but definitely courage. If you have shared any part of your story with anybody, strength and courage. If you've tried something new that you were afraid of doing, without any doubt, courage. Even if it's a new hobby, it doesn't have to be anything seemingly like a big deal. There is so much evidence of your strength and courage. Let yourself reflect on that a little bit. Maybe even journal a little bit, reflecting back, identifying things that show that you are strong and courageous. And if you never speak publicly about how you feel or what you think, there's nothing wrong with that. There are a lot of disadvantages to being public. And fortunately, I'm small enough in terms of my subscription or subscribers and stuff like that, that I haven't had any particularly negative experiences. But I know that there are a lot of people out there that have really struggled emotionally because of what it means to speak publicly. So sharing one-on-one really can be just as meaningful and healing, sometimes even more healing for you and for that person because of that connection. So try to remember that. Thanks for watching. And if you haven't yet subscribed, make sure to do so. Click the bell for notifications. And if you found this helpful, please give it a thumbs up so other people can find it too. I'll look forward to seeing you next time.